When Valorant dropped and the great American exodus began from Counter-Strike, everyone seemed to believe that the tactical shooter veterans would dominate the newer game. And for the majority of the first couple years of Valorant esports, everyone has been pretty right. However, 2 years into the game, there's a lot of homegrown Valorant talent now, former CS players are firmly now Valorant players, and the talent from a variety of other games have made appearances on the global stage. The transfers of players from Counter-Strike have slowed, and as Valorant gets more complex with each new agent and map, it becomes a much more difficult switch to make. That's why it was super surprising when someone like Stewie2K announced he would be giving up an established and lucrative CS career to try and go pro in Valorant. I mean, we are talking about a player with the 10th highest tournament winnings in CSGO history. Just that fact alone is probably enough for Stewie to get some real looks from Valorant orgs, and there's no doubting his tac shooter pedigree. But the real question becomes, is Stewie good enough at Valorant to deserve those looks? Do enough of his CS skills translate, and can he learn Valorant fast enough to actually make an impact for a team in the highly competitive and deep pool of North American talent? I'm going to try and answer that question. The first thing I want to do is use Valorant Tracker to get a purely objective look at how Stewie is playing Valorant statistically. We can see that he started out around episode 3 and, like many mechanically skilled players, immediately dove right into the habit of locking Jett and Reyna. Thanks Valorant Tracker for making this data super easy to work with by collecting a wide variety of important stats on maps and agents. Over the next several acts and episodes, we can see that his Reyna pick rate falls off as Raze and Chamber become staples of his agent pool. Okay, so the guy can frag, but we already knew that from his CSGO career. If Stewie's development had stopped here, I would be pretty skeptical about his future as a Valorant pro, but in the latest acts it seems like he has begun embracing a secondary role, picking up initiators like Fade and Sova more than duelists. Agent and role flexibility are crucial for anyone trying to make a career in this game. Just for fun, let's take Stewie's top 3 agents from the current act and compare them to the performances of players at Valorant Champions 2022. On Fade, Stewie's kill death ratio, average damage per round, and ACS all rank near the top of the Champions players. On Chamber, the same stats would rank towards the bottom half. As for Sova, Stewie's stats are pretty darn good and near the top once again. Obviously, this is a ridiculous comparison considering the context of ranked games versus world-class team competition, but it's still interesting to see how the numbers stack up. And with that context in mind, let's look at some in-game examples of what Stewie might actually bring to a team. But before we do that, I need to tell you a bit more about today's sponsor, Valorant Tracker. This free-to-use app gives you a live overlay of your stats in-game and is a super useful way to keep track of your progress as you improve and play. The app has a variety of ways to visualize and compare the data, and it can help you pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses on maps, agents, and different weapons. There is even a community guide section that can help you quickly find lineups and other setups in case you're learning a new agent or map. Grab Valorant Tracker from the link below to support this channel and take your game to the next level. So we've looked at some stats now, but let's talk about what really makes a pro player. The intangibles. I've been coaching a tier 2 team for a couple of months now, and the things that really matter are stuff like communication, utility usage, teamwork, and decision making. Everyone can shoot well, so I want to evaluate Stewie on those other criteria. Luckily, there were some semi-serious pro/influencer tournaments recently where we can actually see a bit of the dynamics that Stewie brings to a team. Here's a round where Stewie and Zekken are retaking C-Site in a 2v1 situation. It should be a pretty easy win as long as they avoid giving 1v1 fights and play together for the trade. Stewie follows Zekken out of the choke point while holding the right side of default, while Zekken fights the left side of it. Then, as Zekken pushes forward to throw his paint shell grenade, Stewie immediately switches to the left side. He swaps back to the right when Zekken takes the left again, and then flicks back to trade Zekken out when the chamber wide swings with a run and gun Spectre. Good basic trading fundamentals as expected. His spacing to Zekken seems a little far, but what I really like is how he consistently tells Zekken which angle he is holding to make the decisions easier for his teammate. Not every chaotic situation goes as smoothly though, as we see Stewie plant in a 3v3 and get scanned by the enemy Fade's Haunt. He fights off the flanking Chamber despite being tethered, but then severely overheats by wide-swinging Sova alone with only 30 HP, while Zekken is calling for them to play more passively in the 2v1.
Wait,
Enemy remaining.
wait, I'm playing time.
Oh, fuck.
Stewie gets bailed out here by Zekken to save the round, and while it's an understandable mistake to make in the chaos of the action, it's also one that could have cost them the round. I do want to give Stewie credit though, because there seems to be a lot more good decisions being made than bad ones. This round gets a bit weird as the defense pushes Stewie's team back from A with a heavy utility barrage. The attackers immediately begin to pressure B through middle window, but Stewie realizes that the enemy Raze has broken Chamber's flank trademark with the grenade that he threw. Stewie realizes that he's the only one who's currently in position to hold the A flank, so that's what he does. When his teammate makes contact on B site and begins the plant, Stewie knows that he probably needs to now be there to reinforce the planting. So he throws a prowler into A lobby to check for flankers one more time, and then comes through the window to help protect the plant. Chamber makes a mistake and also pushes up middle instead of watching garage, so Stewie picks that up so that they don't get shot from behind. He then moves up to help fight C-Link and trades out Sova, and now in a 2v1, the round is a little weird because they don't know where the enemy Chamber is, and he could be coming late through the window on the flank. Because of this, Stewie tucks underneath the window while holding garage and waits for information. When Chamber kills Breach on site, Stewie pushes up to a closer spot and thinks about using a prowler to try and find Chamber on site. However, he realizes that this would not only give his position away to the Chamber, but Chamber might just wide swing him with utility out. Instead, Stewie makes the smarter play and tucks just outside of the site, waits for Chamber to tap the spike, then waits longer to give Chamber the time to either push into him on a fake defuse or to commit to the defuse before swinging out and catching him on the spike. Really, really well played round from Stewie. Then there's also moments like this, where Stewie has the perfect position with his op to make sure that the attackers are stuck on the B side of the map. All he needs to do is just sit here while his teammates stack the B site, but he gets impatient and teleports to the action out of mid to try and help defend. This is particularly bad because not only does he use the teleport, which gives a sound cue to anyone lurking middle that Chamber is no longer there, but it also gives up the super strong op line and lets the attackers potentially run all the way back to A site without anybody noticing. He quickly recognizes this mistake and asks for Fade to prowler through middle to clear the angle so that he can get back to holding the cross, and recovers the round by catching Killjoy lurking. Communication is where Stewie really shines in my opinion. As we see him opping mid here on Breeze, I want you to listen as he calls out what he's holding, what could be happening, and what he sees and hears in terms of utility and enemy players.
Could go up mid.
Not up yet. They could go tunnel, they ordered me.
I broke side cam off. Yep, I broke it.
They could be up tunnel, careful. I don't see much mid actually. Jet mid, jet mid.
I'm not gonna hold.
Up dead. One more joining mid.
After taking out Jet, Stewie rotates to the B site to disguise where the operator is to the attackers and then quickly coordinates with Chamber which angle they should each be holding to secure the site.
I hold B main, can you hold tunnel or no?
One double.
Yeah, I got you.
This kind of communication is extremely useful for teammates and helps give a ton of needed structure to the round, and it's what many years of high-level competitive experience sounds like in a tournament setting. There are definitely still moments where Stewie makes plays like this, forgetting to drop his teleports and putting himself in a terrible situation. But there are also lots of plays like this one where the utility and movement look great. You can see those superstar instincts kicking in and the old smoke criminal aggression and playmaking takes over the round. Honestly, I was a pretty big doubter of the potential when Stewie announced his plans, and after looking closer at his gameplay, I can say that I'm quite a bit more optimistic than I thought I would be. I don't think he should have a spot on a partnered team, especially with such a small agent pool, but I do think he's a lot closer to being a relevant player than I initially thought. His competitive experience and incredibly good communication are super strong assets that are much harder to develop than learning a couple of new agents. So I'm certainly interested to see how his journey goes.